republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Good to see everyone this evening. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmembers Galloway. Here. Martin.
Here.
Piana. Here. Lennon.
Here.
Mayor Coulter.
Here, yes, thank you. We have a quorum. Our next item of business would be the approval of the agenda. Any changes to the agenda this evening?
I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved by Martin, supported by Piana. Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Councilmembers Galloway.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Piana. Yes. Lennon.
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. The agenda is adopted. Next order of business would be presentations. We have two presentations this evening. The first one is a resolution of appreciation for retiring auxiliary officer Earl Sparkman. And Chief, are you? Oh, all right. That'd be great.
Sorry.
Councilman Lennon.
On behalf of the Ferndale City Council, we extend the city's appreciation to Earl Sparkman on the occasion of his retirement. Earl Sparkman is a credit to this community for volunteering 12 years of auxiliary service, and it is with heartfelt appreciation that we celebrate his achievement. Do I have unanimous support for this?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Support.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. You want it to give to him? I'll give it to you later if you want. Thanks.
We'll see you at the auxiliary
See you at the
dinner.
dinner.
So, yeah. All right.
Great, right? Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Next presentation will be the Downtown Development Authority, and Chris Hughes is going to present the DDA report tonight.
I'm going to be snappy tonight because we have a bigger presentation to follow, but I just wanted to tell everybody about a couple things that are coming up. First of all, we have trick-or-treating in downtown Ferndale this Saturday from 4 to 7 o'clock, and all the different merchants, they just look for this sign and they can get candy, kids in costumes and their parents, and that's followed by there'll be a party at the Rust Belt Market. They're going to have contests for costume kids and their dogs and pets and all kinds of cool stuff. So check the downtownferndale.com website and you'll get all the details on that. But come on downtown for a nice way to spend trick-or-treating on October 27th. On October 29th, thank you, Cindy, we have our annual appreciation awards. Those will be at Local, and we will have, that starts at 6:30, and it will be all the choices that our residents and businesses have made about their new favorite restaurants, signs, businesses, all kinds of cool stuff. If you haven't voted yet, please go to our website, once again, at downtownferndale.com. Everybody is welcome. It's going to be a great night to honor all of our great new businesses and all of our volunteers. And finally, on November 15th, save the date, we have Light the Town, and we will be having music and festivities and all kinds of fun stuff in downtown Ferndale to launch the holiday season, which starts actually with Thanksgiving. So we're going to get a nice, good jump on the season and bring everybody to town on November 15th. And that is it from us tonight.
Thanks, Chris.
Until later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our presentations. Next order of business, we have two public hearings this evening, and the first public hearing is on the Special Assessment Sidewalk District for 2012. So at this time, I would like to open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone from the audience who would like to address the Sidewalk Assessment Program for 2012. Please step forward at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion of the public hearing and introduce this item. Lloyd, were you going to introduce this?
I was thinking
Or,
for summary.
that'd be great. Thank you. Probably should have had you do that beforehand, so if anyone has questions after you talk, I'll still let them talk.
It's no problem. In order to provide safe pathways and comply with state law, the City of Ferndale has divided the city into 10 special assessment districts. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. This is the second 10-year cycle that we're into. This year, we've replaced 13,000 square feet of sidewalk. It is my recommendation that council confirm the assessment role for the special assessment district.
Thank you.
Happy to answer any questions.
Other questions of council?
I do. How do you approach quality control for the work that's being done on the sidewalks?
Both engineers and city personnel, inspect the site afterward, and there are occasions where contractors are required to come back and redo the work.
And how would residents report if they feel they have a quality issue with the work that's done?
They can either contact the people that they see working in the field, directly contact the Public Works Department, or call here at City Hall, and we'll definitely address each and every concern.
And how is graffiti in the sidewalk sections handled? I mean, I've noticed a lot of sidewalk sections with names in there and footmarks and...
The contractor, as part of the specifications, is required to ensure that that doesn't occur. So if it occurs, it's automatically a removal and replacement. So they need to have adequate staff there to ensure that the concrete cures without any graffiti or damage.
Okay, well, almost every single one between Marshfield and Fielding on Pinecrest over to Kensington has 2 young lovebirds initials in it. So.
Oh, well, thank you for pointing that out. I will be looking into that. Was that done in
This latest
cycle?
one, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments, questions?
I do have one more question. When do you expect this round of replacement to be done?
We're done currently, although there are a couple of replacements that are going to take place. You know, as far as concrete that was not up to specification, and is maybe some private property concrete that's been damaged and still needs to be corrected.
So this would be a good time for residents to get a hold of you if
Absolutely.
they have an issue. So call Lloyd
Be happy to
directly
help
over at the
them.
DPW department. Thanks, Lloyd.
All right.
A motion would be in order.
I move to confirm the assessment roll for Special Assessment Sidewalk District 2012 and to spread the special assessments on the winter tax roll levied December 1st, 2012, unless granted deferment by the Hardship Committee.
Support.
Moved by Piana, supported by Galloway. Any further comments, questions on this item? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Martin,
Yes.
Piana,
Yes.
Lennon.
Yes.
Galloway.
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you very much. Next public hearing is the CDBG 2013 program year, and maybe I'll do this by introducing the item first, and then we'll ask if anyone from the public would like to address it. Derek, are you speaking to this issue?
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. As always, yearly, we are here to do the public hearing for the CDBG program. As in previous years, the allotment and the administration is done through Oakland County. This year, our total projection for program year 2013 is $76,222. That is based on last year's figures. Of course, as usual, until HUD and then the feds release the money, we won't know exactly, but that's what we have been told to use for our programming this year. And similar to last year, we've broken it down. The majority of the money will be used for, or is being proposed to be used for, code enforcement, $59,722. $8,000 of it will be used for chore services, which is basically yard services for seniors and other folks in the community, lawn mowing, snow removal, those types of items. $3,000 of it, as in previous years, is being proposed for Haven, which is a battered and abused spouses shelter. And then the remainder of it would be $5,500 for minor home repair. In accordance with HUD guidelines, we have to have a minor home repair program if we use a portion of the money for code enforcement. So the programming of it is basically exactly the same as last year, and obviously we are here to answer any questions you may have.
Well, let's begin now with the public hearing. So let me open the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address council on the CDBG funding for 2013? Hi, how are you?
Hi, good. My name is Blair Grin. I live at 393 Wordsworth, but I'm here to represent Haven. So first off, I'd like to begin by thanking the City of Ferndale for all of your past contributions. As you know, Haven is an agency that works with issues of domestic violence and sexual assault. I've worked as a criminal court and first response advocate for the past 4 years. Every year, Haven provides counseling and shelter for survivors of abuse, whether they're men, women, or children. We have offices in Pontiac and Bingham Farms, and we serve the entire county. Last year, we worked with 86 individuals from Ferndale, and in addition, we took 24 crisis calls from residents. Tonight, I'm here to ask the City of Ferndale for $4,000 to support Haven in our effort to provide services for survivors in this community. And again, I'd just like to thank everyone for your past support and for considering our current request. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Does the current allotment prohibit you from servicing more? Like, would it be, if we were to allot 4,000 versus 3,000, would that 86 number have been higher?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
If we'd allotted $4,000 versus $3,000 as per your request, I mean, are there services you're turning away because there's not enough allocation there? I mean,
Oh,
would that
absolutely
86 have been
not.
more?
No, absolutely not. It's just a matter of how we access survivors and really how they end up coming to us through referrals. So, you know, in theory, we never really turn anyone away as long as they're appropriate. You know, basically, if they're survivors of some kind of abuse, if it's intimate partner or sexual assault, we're happy to work with them. So the amount of money really has no bearing on who we serve. It's just random.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public who would like to address us during this public hearing? I'll close the public hearing portion, and now, council, do you have comments or questions on this item?
If I recall correctly, we used to give 5,000 to Haven, and we reduced it, budget cuts down to 3. So the question is the council ready to increase back to where we were at normal levels at this time, or before? So
I would personally like to entertain moving it back up if we can get a recommendation of where to pull the 1,000 from, right? Because we'd have to pull the 1,000 from one of these other accounts.
Yeah, and that's where I can provide a piece of clarification. Last year, the HUD guidelines changed to put a maximum of 15% on public service items, which in this case are chore services and Haven. Last year, the reduction required a total reduction between the two programs of $2,000. And what council did and what staff recommended was a reduction in chore services from 9,000 to 8,000 and a reduction in Haven from 4 to 3. So based on that required percentage, if you were to raise Haven, we would recommend that the reduction come from the chore services from 8,000 to 7,000. That would keep us within the 15%.
And the chore services benefits Ferndale citizens exclusively.
Correct, through OSHA. Currently, our contract is with OSHA.
By the way, on the code enforcement, the $59,722, what percentage of your code enforcement budget is that? How much of our budget do we get from CBD?
In total, under the current budget, probably 80%.
That's about 80% of our budget?
Yeah.
So for the $8,000 in yard service, a reduction of 1,000 would impact how many residents that we currently support through this program?
It works out to approximately $30 per unit of service in chore service.
And we use it all today?
Yeah, we've used it all in previous years.
It's a very successful program also.
Both are fantastic.
Obviously, that's why you put them before us. A lot of folks, especially seniors and lower income folks, can take advantage of the chore service. A lot of seniors take advantage of it. So I guess I'm a little reluctant to adjust them. You know, it sounds like you did it in as fair a way as you could, given the cuts that we had to make there. So I'm a little reluctant to change them.
I know both programs provide probably more service to Ferndale residents than CDBG covers. So in both instances, I think the programs provide as much or more service than we're actually paying for. So it's a difficult situation as we continue to have our budget cut through CDBG.
Well, I would move that we adopt the motion as described in our agenda item number 5B.
Is there support?
Support.
Moved by Galloway, supported by Piana. Further discussion?
Just a question for Derek. Derek, would there anticipate to be any money left over out of that 8,000, or would you probably end up using it all?
Last year, we have used all of our chore money through the contracts over the last 3 years.
And same with code enforcement?
Correct, yes. The only money we've had any balance in at the end of the year is minor home repair.
And then at that time, we could probably entertain maybe give us more money to Haven.
Well, that has to stay there, though, right?
Essentially, the balance between the two publics, has to say 15%. So If there is the ability, we can certainly as staff work with the county. If there is the ability within that 15%, if we can reprogram either some of the minor home repair, we'll investigate it and see if it can be pushed towards Haven as opposed to carried over from previous years.
That might be appropriate thing.
Yeah, I'd love to, like I said before, give more to Haven, but I'm concerned about the
public
15%
hearing
cap and from that perspective, so I'll support the motion as presented.
Any further comments or questions? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Piana,
Yes.
Lennon,
Yes.
Galloway,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That budget is adopted. Thank you very much. Next item of business, Sherry, now I'm looking at you, is the call to audience. As you know, call to audience is 30 minutes now, and more time if needed at the end of the meeting. 3 minutes to speak on any item that's not on the agenda, although, Sherry, I'll make an exception if you want to go back on the agenda and speak to something that we'd already covered. Oh, and by the way, I think a happy birthday is in order. Did you not recently celebrate a birthday?
Yes, I did yesterday.
Oh, very happy birthday to you.
I won't catch up to Ann Heller, but I couldn't do that walking with her either. Sherry Wells, 315 West Troy. This is more of a general thing that the last item just pointed out again. To have a public hearing before all the information is out there. I didn't have any questions about it until we got all of the information there, and then I had some questions, but by that time, the public hearing part was over, and none of you are on ESP with me to ask my questions. For example, questions like, are there other chore services that go wanted, that the 8,000 is used up and there are people that could use it. We had a discussion about continuing the time bank, and part of it was saying, well, maybe some of us could earn hours by doing the snow shoveling or something for seniors. And I said, I think there's already a program for that. I don't know. So this is the kind of question that I would have asked in this. I think, is it a charter, the order of when the public hearing happens in a council meeting, a charter thing, or a council procedural thing?
What do you think, Dan?
It's prerogative of the chair. And I think actually the chair has taken to having the item introduced now most of the time before opening it for public hearing.
And I did notice that, Mr. Mayor, that you have been doing that. That has been helping greatly. We just need to be able to ask our questions after all the information is out there, so we're not wasting time asking about something that's going to be explained. Otherwise, I didn't plan to talk about this at call to audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Jeannie Davis.
Yes, it's Jeannie Davis. I'm wearing my senior hat today, and I want to invite everybody to come to our Wednesday meeting, the senior meeting at the Kulik Center at 11 a.m. Admission is free, and Mayor Dave Coulter will be coming and speaking on the state of the city or any other burning questions that the ladies might have to ask you. So you don't have to be a senior to come. Please come and join us and listen to the mayor's talk. And by doing this, I will not text you for as many times as I texted you last week to remind you.
And it's not totally free. I'm supposed to bribe with some baked goods, right?
Oh, I wanted to tell you, it's our birthday meeting, so you don't have to this time. Unless you really want to. The ladies love cookies.
I've learned that.
And the other thing I would like to invite everyone is a couple of years ago, we seniors put together a cookbook, and we launched it with a taste fest for the cookbook at the Ferndale Library. And what we've done is we've put together a supplement to the cookbook. So you can buy the supplement, you can buy the cookbook, you can do it either way, but you can come and we'll have approximately 15 of the recipes. You can sample the recipes just like you did before when you came, and that's a week from today on the 29th, and it's from 5 to 7 at the library. So we'd like everybody to come to that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Amy Butters. I live at 19 Millington in Pleasant Ridge, and I'm here to talk to you as a candidate for the Ferndale School Board. I just wanted to touch on a couple of things tonight. One, all of the candidates on my slate, I'm the B in bold. I'm on the bold slate. We have been out knocking on doors in Ferndale, and it's been such a pleasure. And I want to thank everyone out there in Ferndale who have been so kind, opening the doors and chatting with us about the issues involved in this election, except for one. And I will say there was one door that I knocked on that scared me half to death, because it had one of those spiders that jumps out at you. And I guess that's just kind of the hazard of having the election, the school board election, in November now. It used to be in May. And so that was my only negative response, and I'm glad that I've been really enjoying knocking on doors and talking to the voters. The second thing I wanted to say is just a few days ago, all 8 of us candidates were up there where you're sitting for a forum sponsored by the League of Women Voters, and we had a full audience, and we just wanted to thank everyone for coming and watching the forum. And we also wanted to extend our appreciation to the staff for posting the video so quickly that night. It's been so great for us to be able to tell voters that this forum is available on the city website to watch, and it's great for the voters to have that as a reference. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. Hi, Jim.
Good evening. My name is Jim O'Donnell. I live at 1326 West Hazelhurst Street. I'm also running for school board. I'm the O in bold. And I just wanted to extend my thanks also to the city for hosting the forum here in the council chambers and for broadcasting it, recording it, and to Deputy Clerk Marnie McGrath, who I know was here late that night as we were all lingering, so I appreciate her being here also. Just to extend on what Amy was saying, I've had a tremendous response walking around town, knocking on doors. And just on a sidewalk note, I think the oldest sidewalk flag that I've walked across is from the 1920s. At least that's what the stamp said on the corner of Central and Earl Boulevard. So some of our sidewalks are holding up pretty well. Definitely as I walk around town, I know that people do have a lot of questions about the schools. Maybe they haven't had kids in schools for a while. They haven't kept up on what's happening. So there's a forum that's going to be at the library with all 8 candidates on Sunday, October 28th. And that's at 1 o'clock from 1 to 3. And then a forum at the high school in the media center, what used to be known as a library when I went to high school. But and that's going to be on Monday, October 29th. And that'll be at 7, I believe. So we just look forward to meeting more voters, to talking to people at the forums, and don't forget to vote on November 6th. And if you can't vote on November 6th, you contact the city clerk, and she'll be happy to send an absentee ballot, I'm sure. Thank
Yes,
you.
she will. Thanks, Jim. I'm
evening, Mayor
noticing a
Coulter.
trend. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Raylon Leaks May. I live at 1655 West Saratoga, and I'm the Ellen Bold. I just also want to thank the City Council for letting us have our League of Women Voters forum here. I found it very enlightening for my first experience, and Mayor Coulter, I had your chair.
I noticed that.
I would also like to say that over the past 7 months, we've been kind of walking the streets as a Ferndale school board candidate. We've been walking the streets, meeting the community members and getting feedback, positive as well as negative, but feedback nonetheless, and I've really been appreciating it. I'm very honored of the support that I and the Bold team have in the community. It's very exciting, and I'm very humbled by it as well. I just want to say that I look forward to working with community members, city officials, the school board members, administrators, and doing what's best for this district. And I thank you for giving me this few minutes to say my piece. And don't forget to vote on November 6th, 15 days away. Don't forget.
Thank you. Might as well,
Fairly inevitable that I would come up here. I'm Kevin Deegan-Krause, and as you can guess, I'm the D in Bold. I actually just want to continue with the Gratitude Fest. It's been really remarkable to walk Ferndale's neighborhoods and to meet people I've never met before and talk to people I've never met, and with extraordinary generosity. People have welcomed us on their porches into their homes and shared with us some really important and personal stuff. I really appreciate that. And if I'm fortunate enough to be elected to the school board, I'll take that information with me and hopefully take those habits with me of continuing to walk around those particular neighborhoods. The only thing I want to say is, in addition to voting on November 6th, turn the ballot over. This is going to be the longest ballot in a long time, and on the back are lots of issues. You don't get them if you check the party ballot or the party line votes, so you got to go to the back. The Supreme Court justices are on the back. The ballot proposals are on the back. A lot of other judgeships are on the back, including our own former mayor, Gettert, and the school board is on the back right in the middle. So I would encourage you to turn it over, vote for those, and for those who see fit, voting for B, O, L, and D. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin. Anyone else would like to address council this evening? Welcome back. We're matching now.
Yes. Now, welcome to the club. Gary McMenamin, Ferndale Firefighters Local 812, Community Relations Chair. John Schwal, Union Secretary. Just wanted to come back here tonight, and first of all, we just wanted to see everybody in pink. But you guys look great up there. You do. I like it with the fire patch and everything. It looks good. But wanted to let you know how we've done so far.
Why don't you remind folks why we're wearing these, because in case they didn't watch 2 weeks ago.
Absolutely. This is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And as part of an initiative by the International Association of Firefighters, we are doing fundraising to bring awareness to breast cancer and to find a cure. We're getting close. And as such, your Ferndale firefighters have decided that we were going to make pink shirts for our uniforms with the approval of Chief Sullivan. We came up with that, and then we thought, why just us? The whole community is part of this. And, you know, the fire department belongs to them. Let's have them as part of the fire department. So we decided to produce the shirts for sale. And the support has been phenomenal. Now, unfortunately, because there was a line out the door today at City Hall. It was crazy here. They weren't able to give us any figures. And they have sold the lion's share of the shirts so far. But I can just say between the two stations, we've taken in over $1,400 in 2 weeks.
That's awesome.
Great.
You know, and it's when I think about that, it does give you some chills. It just shows you how this community does come together and how we do support the things that are important. But we're not finished. You know, we realize that for next year, and we're going to do this again, that we need to order a lot more smalls. So we had a couple of rush jobs put in, and we've just taken our last delivery. We won't be taking any more in, but we will be selling the shirts through October. You can still get them at City Hall or at either fire station. Or if you see a firefighter, grab them and say, hey, where can I get a shirt? We'll make sure you get one. That's been another side thing to this. It's brought some people into the fire station. And just, you know, hey, can I get a shirt? Looking around, seeing the trucks, you know, meeting with the firefighters, and we love that. And I can't stress enough, because this is also Fire Prevention Month, that, you know, you want to come in and see your fire station? Please, these are your fire trucks. These are your facilities. And, you know, we're very honored that we're the keepers of that. So it's nice to see people come in and be interested. I do have to give a little shout out, since we're doing gratitude tonight. We could not have done this as well as we did without the support of the city staff. City Manager Lynch, you know, graciously offered, you know, her staff and services to help us. Jenny Longthorne has been just great to work with. I mean, she was very, very enthusiastic about this, and she's helped us in a lot of ways. I've been in communication with Barb Miller. She's been pushing the shirts and, doing a little strong arming when people come up to the desk. And we're very appreciative for Barb's efforts. So we'll be continuing this through the end of the month. $20 for a shirt. You're going to need more than just one. Trust me. We went out today on the room and got a little dirty. So please. And thank you very much.
Well, we thank you guys too. This is a great idea. I'm glad it's successful. We're happy to help. Thank you guys for taking the initiative to do this. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you, sir.
Chief Collins, or are you just?
Last but not least, it's always hard to first give credibility to the fire department for doing nice stuff, but really have to hand it to them. It's an awesome thing that they're doing, and they're very successful. I do want to address council on a non-police matter, and that is we do have the new poster for the challenge between the Ferndale Fire Department, Police Department, and the school officials for the latest dodgeball thing on November 1st, 6:30 p.m. at Ferndale High School. $5 for adults, $3 for children. This is a fundraiser. This is the second time that we've done it. And the funds raised will go to the Eagles Pledge, which is a scholarship program that we're trying to raise for all the students that go to Ferndale High School or Ferndale schools. And in addition to that, if anybody, this is on Facebook now, if you see it, I'm sure it'll show up around town. It looks suspiciously a lot like the DVD case of the original movie. So it's been a lot of fun. A lot of things, a lot of good sports have come, a lot of media attention. I believe we'll have some media personalities there refereeing the game. So it should be interesting, and the fire department is participating. Apparently now they're all into community service, whatever. We want to get some, my favorite part about it is the payback for the teachers, because the cops want payback on the teachers. So.
It's a great poster. November 1st, 6:30 at the high school. Awesome. Thanks, Chief. Anyone else for call to audience this evening? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda items are things that council considers routine, and we enact in one motion unless any of the items are removed. Let me take a moment to read the consent agenda. Item A is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held October 8, 2012. B is the approval to allocate funding necessary up to $10,000 to reimburse employees who participate in the Weight Watchers at Work program starting November 28 and who complete at least 10 of the 12 Weight Watchers sessions. C, approval to adopt a proclamation for Transgender Day of Remembrance. D, approval of the annual contribution for the MMRMA coverage and excess distribution with a contribution for fiscal 2013 of $645,631 and charged to 101,940,914, $509,631 and $136,000 charged to 661,000,914. And approval of an increase to the miscellaneous revenue budget of $390,000. That's all as submitted by our finance director. E, approval of the contract with Traffic and Safety Control Systems for service and maintenance for 1 year, utilizing the fee schedule of the attached contract from December 1st, 2012 through November 30th, 2014, and funded by the Auto Parking Fund. F, approval of the additional multi-space meter for Vester Street on-street parking not to exceed $14,000 in cost and also to be funded by the Auto Parking Fund. G, approval of a voluntary separation agreement as submitted by our Human Resources Generalist. And finally, H, approval of the bills and payrolls as submitted by the City Manager's Office, subject to the review of the Council Finance Committee. Is there anyone in the audience, first of all, that would like to address any items on the consent agenda? If not, council, a motion would be in order, or unless someone wants to pull something.
I would move that we adopt the consent agenda in its entirety.
Support.
Moved by Galloway, supported by Martin. Any discussion on the consent agenda this evening? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Lennon? Galloway?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Fiana?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. The consent agenda is adopted. Moving on to the regular agenda, we have just one item today, but it's a pretty exciting one, and that is the consideration of the West 9 Mile project. City Manager, you want to tee that one up for us?
I do. This project is a project that has been worked through with the DDA as well as city staff. Just for a little bit of history, I think Christina and Scott are going to talk in more detail, but one of the things that the city does is we work very closely with our engineers to ensure that we have a plan of action as it relates to our road projects and our infrastructure projects, ensuring that we're not replacing a road and then 2 years down the line replacing the water main, have to replace the road again and things of that nature. So we actually usually know about 10 years out where we're going to be. This project back in almost 2000, I think 2001, was slated to have infrastructure, water and sewer, as well as a road repaving on the West 9 Mile from Planavon to Pinecrest, correct? Okay. So with that, that gets on the radar of city staff very quickly in planning and preparing for those projects, as well as also planning and preparing for grants. And I know Scott's going to talk briefly about some grants we received for the paving part of the grant very briefly, but the bigger part is what we refer to as a street enhancement project. So again, this has been in the planning stages for almost 10 years with our ability to plan ahead. And I think at this point, what I'd like to do is have Christina talk a little bit more about. We're going to touch briefly again on the water and sewer, as well as resurfacing of that road. But what we're really here to talk about tonight is the streetscape improvements, which is very different than just paving the road as it is. So with that, I'm going to let Christina take it. Talk a little bit about the history, how we are where we are today, how we determined the streetscape improvements, and we'll end tonight with discussion if we want to move this project forward and how we're going to fund that. So with that, I'm going to let Christina take it, and we'll be able to offer and ask any questions, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little story about how the West was won. So the territory that we're talking about is actually 9 Mile, West 9 Mile, and as you cross over the Continental Divide, which is Livernois, you enter into a new territory of the Downtown Development Authority. It's an area that has not been touched by streetscape improvement projects that were done in phases 1, 2, and 3, which started in 1998. And this was always an area that we had looked to eventually getting to. The area is from Livernois to Pinecrest, and what you'll find is really hazardous conditions for pedestrians. And it's really lackluster for consumers, and it doesn't provide confidence for coming and shopping and really spending time in that area. It also is a disconnect for the rest of our downtown area and our merchants that are within that area. So when we're looking at the West 9 Mile section, we're looking at sidewalks, the amenities that are on the streets, as well as the fact that it is a 5-lane road section and really does need a road diet, and it is absolutely void of on-street parking in that area. You'll also find that there is a little bit higher rate of vacancies in unmaintained properties within that area. The facilities that you'll find out there today, you'll find these sidewalks extremely tight. One person being able to get by a building and a light pole. Same conditions on the north side of the street. This is actually near 7-Eleven. It's almost even a little bit worse, especially if you are pushing a stroller, because you actually have to go off the sidewalk a little bit, too. There's areas such as this, which is a private parking lot, the edge of a private parking lot, abutting public property, which is just really unmaintained and unsightly, and really does not encourage safety or consumer confidence in that area specifically. Dairy Queen, many of us love Dairy Queen, and it's very full during the summertime, and I think all of you can envision the mobs of people out on the sidewalk, and that slim little rail that just abuts the sidewalk and the roadway and keeps people hopefully safe from cars passing by. So as April had mentioned, there is a couple road projects involved with this area, and I like to call them Los Tres Amigos, my three amigos. And resurfacing from Planavon to Pinecrest is just that. It'll take that entire length. However, the streetscape project is from Livernois to Pinecrest, so not the entire section from Planavon to Pinecrest. The water main replacement, as April had mentioned, is important. You don't want to get in there and do all the work and then later find out that the water main is needed to be upgraded, which is the case. It's currently a 6-inch main, and most of the mains within Ferndale are 12-inch mains. So this will hopefully improve the water flow, obviously, to our homes and businesses. Tell you a little bit more of the history of how this all unveiled. Starting back in 2001, the DDA did do street assessments. We basically walk up and down, and we worked with Main Street Oakland County and consultants who came in and really helped us to assess what was needed within these areas. As well as coming off of a lot of those projects that we had just completed. We literally had just completed Phase 3, which included this end of 9 Mile. So knowing what we had done well, and some things that we would change, we really wanted to look at that West 9 Mile area from Livernois to Pinecrest. There was also a walkability study or audit that was done in 2004. Actually, that was provided by MDOT. Through a Cool Cities grant that the DDA received to do some funding for the downtown area, and we were able to take advantage of that audit. Some of the same results came from that audit. The DDA then started looking at more focus groups and bringing people in, residents and businesses and property owners. And from those focus groups, we really identified the true need within that area and then developed a development plan that was adopted by the city through their master plan in 2008. In 2009, the city DPW received a 3R grant. It's a road resurfacing grant, and that is the one of the three amigos. In 2011, the DDA began with the DPW looking at engineering for West 9 Mile. To begin really working on this. Really, we were told that the project for the resurfacing would be in 2013. We knew at that point we needed to get moving in order to get plans together, because it does take a good couple years to put everything together. We still continued to do more focus groups. And with those focus groups, we had many people telling us what was needed within that West 9 Mile area. We had a lot of sticky notes on that sticker board, and quite a few people. We probably had about 40 people that had come out for that specific evening focused on West 9 Mile. And great input from that as well, which will carry over into the designs a little bit later. In 2012, we started applying for the grant. We actually submitted our grant in January and then received our commitment letter in June. And now we're at the point that we have to submit a resolution regarding funding. So we are in October. As we move forward, just so you know for the timeline, we'll begin bids in January, construction would begin in April, and then conclude in September, obviously with the landscaping being the last thing to go in. So clearing out the tumbleweeds from West 9 Mile, we start to really look at what do the streetscape plans include. And what does it do? It really brings about a better quality of life for that area. We're looking at reducing that 5-lane intersection to a 3-lane, so converting it to 3 lanes. It will also include bike-friendly sharrows, so integrating those within our system, and on-street bike parking. We are widening sidewalks on an average of 7 feet, making ADA compliancy, obviously, but also making it much more walkable for our entire community to traverse that area. We are also adding in a mid-block crossing, And the Cobra heads that you see out there, and I don't know if everyone knows what I mean by a Cobra head, but it's the large street utility pole with the light at the top, kind of looks like a Cobra head of a snake. Those will be removed through this process, and lower level street poles like we have on West 9 Mile, the black ornamental poles, will be installed in place. And parking lot screenings, where those parking lots are a little bit less than presentable, will help to really screen those lots, and working with the different property owners to improve their properties at the same time. As soon as we start doing our work, they're going to start doing theirs as well. They'll start paying attention to their own property. Streetscape amenities, well, we do have 9 or so benches that will be installed, trash and recyclable containers. There'll actually be a combo unit. Over 60 trees and perennial beds that will be installed. And as I had mentioned, on-street bike trails as well as some on-sidewalk ones too. So I'm going to turn it over to Scott Ringler from Giffords Webster, who has worked tirelessly on this project and has really put all the engineering together for us. And I will help you click through from this point. So.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
As Christina said, I'll just touch base real briefly on some of the geometrics and a little bit of the engineering aspects on this. This sketch you saw back, I think, last January, this was our initial concept plan where we were taking the 5 lanes and converting them 5 lanes down to 3 lanes. You can see MDOT finally approved this. We have been submitting for approval to do the road diet since last, I think it was March, we made our original submittal. Because it's federally funded, we have to get MDOT's approval to reduce some lanes. So we received an email last night with that approval. So with that, you can see that it's down to 3 lanes. The 9 Mile and Pinecrest intersection is actually 4 and 5 lanes, east and west, 3 lanes north and south, with a right turn lane going northbound onto eastbound 9 Mile. We talked last January how skewed that intersection is with respect to the pavement markings. That has all been in alignment now, so it's going to be a much safer intersection for everybody. So. I haven't seen all these slides, so. This is the landscaping plan from basically a little bit west of Pinecrest all the way up to the Livernois intersection. We wanted to go a little bit west of 9 Mile or west of Pinecrest just so you start to get that feel of entering downtown Ferndale. And then this is the intersection we had talked about. The striping plans aren't out there, but you can kind of see where the curbs are aligned. So it's going to be a much safer intersection. Yeah, yes, I'm sorry. The 7-Eleven curb is what we're doing is on the south side of 7-Eleven, we're actually pulling the curb out into the road, which is basically the outer lane right now, and also doing the same thing on the east side of Pinecrest. So what it's going to do is make a much wider intersection, a much safer intersection for pedestrians to cross. Do you want to go back one? All right. The two there are basically the Kenton intersections and the Beaufield intersection. I think we got a slide coming up soon here to talk about the Kenton intersection. The Beaufield intersection, we're putting a crosswalk across 9 Mile for basically a mid-block crossing.
What will happen in front of the Dairy Queen?
We're widening. You can go back one, and we can show that. Right in front of the Dairy Queen, you can see right now, I think there's about 8 or 9 feet of sidewalk there from basically the Dairy Queen to back of curb. There will be about 14 to 15 feet when we're done. And we're putting in a small planter box there, right there at the intersection, with some trees and planter boxes or plants inside there. So it's going to be a much wider, much nicer, much safer place for the Dairy Queen.
Can we ask questions as we go? Or?
Yeah.
On the Taco Bell, the...
Getting a reputation.
I knew the minute I said it. On the Taco Bell, they submitted plans to the Planning Commission, which we approved, which had some modifications to some of the entrance to the parking lot there. Does this conflict with anything that we've approved for that development?
I was unavailable for that meeting for when they reviewed those plans. So
I was
think
looking at you, but I guess I don't know who.
I do know I have them plans, and I've taken their new drive approaches into consideration with our design, so they should match. I'd definitely be getting them a set of plans to confirm that.
Okay, thank you.
And then my question was at Bofield, is that a light triggered crosswalk? Will there be?
No.
So it will be like the one across at the court here, where?
It's just going to be striped.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Which is the drawing of, what's your drawing for the Kenton one? We don't have the streets on our drawings. What's the?
I think it's
sheet
coming up,
number?
isn't it, Christina? Yeah. Yeah, real quickly, the Livernois intersection, we presented last January a concept plan for a roundabout. At the direction of, I believe, council, we also had a study done on some signalized intersections so we can make a comparison. We just got that study back about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I know it's at the DDA's office. We just haven't had a lot of time to get together and talk about that. So currently, the Livernois intersection, we are really, really trying to make the least amount of improvements in that intersection for the time being. Generally, the improvements through that intersection is for ADA compliance with the walkways, and we will resurface through that intersection.
And that was going to be my question. So if we approve this tonight, either whatever model we go for in that intersection, this will be compatible with. I mean, for the Livernois right? I mean,
No.
Am I saying that clearly?
No, they're doing the least amount of work because they're anticipating another project down the
Right.
road to
That's
redo
okay.
that
So
intersection.
this project will not will be compatible with whatever we do at Livernois, I guess is my.
Well, for the most part, yes.
Yeah.
Let me ask the question a different way. This project is not dictating a roundabout at Livernois and 9, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. This project here, we're doing the minimum amount of work to that intersection.
Right.
Excuse my hand sketching there, but we've been working through some different scenarios to take that Kenton Road and make it really basically a one-way road. I know it's one-way now. It's wide. I think a lot of people turn there. A lot of people come out of Dairy Queen and Taco Bell, and they go basically south on Kenton. So what we've done is we've met with police, fire, and TIA and tried to develop some different schemes to basically dead-end Kenton at the alley. And you'll see there's a little bit of a curb there. It's a mountable curb. And then just north of there is what we're going to install some grass pavers. Them grass pavers will support fire trucks, DPW vehicles, any type of emergency vehicle that needs to get through there. And we're going to try to screen it basically on the west side there so it, as you're looking from 9 Mile, it looks like it's a dead-end road. And what we're going to do is then convert Kenton basically to a driveway. It's going to be a one-way driveway basically to access the Dairy Queen, exit the Dairy Queen. So, and then there's some, there's a future use there, maybe a pocket park or maybe something for Dairy Queen for picnic tables, stuff like that. So that's the concept right now. We've submitted that to TIA. We're still waiting for TIA's final comments on that plan.
And the general theory or idea of changing Kenton to a one-way or to a dead end is just maybe, Christina?
Maybe I'll do that. Based on the focus groups that we held, we had quite a few residents that were complaining about traffic that was going the wrong way, down the one-way, out of Dairy Queen. And quite a few people that were very, very adamant about doing something about it. And their first comments were close down the street. My first comment back was, I don't know if the fire and police department are really going to like that. So that's why we really went back to kind of look at what possible possibilities were out there. And I think we've really come up with something very nice that works for everybody. And we will be presenting this concept drawing as well at a open house that we'll be hosting fairly soon too, to get further feedback as well. But this is not part of the grant that was received. However, the curb work, as long as we get the plans drawn out and together before we actually go to bid or construction? To bid, that the curbs would actually then be brought out on 9 Mile to make this concur with that. Any other questions on
Well,
that?
I guess my question is, we're doing this primarily because of all the customers at the Dairy Queen.
No.
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 Okay.
No. I mean, there are a lot of customers there at the Dairy Queen.
Because the Dairy Queen could go away, I mean, God forbid, I don't want to try to scare you, Dan, but the Dairy Queen could close.
Well, actually, they are.
But it's still, I guess that's my question, is in your view, does it still make sense to do this if it was a different type of business there?
Depending on the type of business. Now, the customer, it's really been coming from the residents. It hasn't been coming from the customers that you need to close down the street. The customers may say something else, but the residents would really are the ones that are saying this. Now, Dairy Queen has stated that they do plan to make a remodeling project of the Dairy Queen property. So going back to him as well, with these ideas and concepts to kind of work out the final plans for that area. He has owned the property for a while, so I don't think he's going anywhere quite yet.
And then did I hear you say this isn't part of the Streetscape project?
It is not part of the grant.
Of the grant.
Right.
Gotcha.
And it is not in the numbers that we'll be showing you at the end of this presentation because we haven't fleshed out all the details quite yet. But what would be included as part of the grant is the curb area, the brick pavers, and the crosswalks. That would be pulled in order to do that, because otherwise you'll see this faint line of where the curb currently is.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So
Why is Kenton one way to begin with?
it was probably made one way because of the traffic that was happening because of Dairy Queen. Yeah. I think that was before my time. So. Okay. I think you're done for now. Until they have more questions. Okay, so we're just now for boots and we're ready for the hoedown. We'll get down to business here. And really our point in terms of communication, our communication is going to be better than the Pony Express. We're going to be a lot faster. We will be hosting an open house on November 7th. We're hosting it at 925 West 9 Mile, which was the former Great Wall. Prior to that, Judy Elias' studios. And good open space so we can kind of spread out plans, and residents and businesses and property owners can really come in and get to know and feel the project, as well as get to know what the traffic circulation pattern will be as well during construction.
And will this be the time for the Kenton discussion as well?
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. And granted, we won't have feedback yet probably from TIA by that point, or a meeting with a secondary meeting with fire and police department, but we need to at least have those conversations with the public at that point. We do plan that once we're into the construction period and the pre-construction period, that we'll be sending out weeklies to our businesses and property owners. So basically, weeklies will be like weekly e-blasts, and for those who might not have email, it will be snail mail, or it will be a hand-delivered newsletter to them, or a copy of the e-blast. We will also have a daily web ticker on our website to let people know what is happening with construction on a daily basis. We're also looking into something a little fun, is having our construction crew actually have very specified T-shirts that identify them as how the West was won, and signage and banners that help to direct that area. Social media will obviously be a large part of it, but we do have to make sure that we're in the local media too, for all forums, to reach all different levels and reading preferences, because as much information as possible as you can have out there on a consistent basis is going to make the construction process that much smoother.
How long is the construction project?
It will be from April until September.
Until September.
Yes.
How many lanes will be accessible for folks? Will there be total closures at any point? Do we know any of that yet, Scott?
2 lanes open.
2 lanes will be
Yes.
open.
And there will be areas where there will not be left turns allowed. We have worked out a timing for the light at Livernois to allow for the left at Livernois. And so there will be some backup coming, further east. And we have to really be conscious of that and aware of that, as well as during our event season, special events, parades, that type of thing. We're going to have to take all those things into consideration. Everybody is aware at City Hall about this at this point, and we're already starting to develop plans for that. So getting to the dollars and cents of it all. The cost of this project, just the streetscape component, this does not include the resurfacing or the water main, is over $1.1 million project. That does include the engineering component. The transportation enhancement grant that we received from the federal government is over $590,000, a significant portion of the project. The DDA has already contributed to engineering on the project over $63,000. So our funds still needed in order to develop and meet the resolution necessary for the funding is over $473,000. And just a note, I did want to let people know is that the DDA and volunteers, and including Giffords-Webster, has also kicked in additional in-kind and value-added services. We've done things above and beyond which don't show in that $1.1 million amount, including we have on our DDA Board of Directors, we have a landscape architect who really has helped us to design and look at the landscaping plans for that area. So it is an added value by leveraging the resources that we have within our community to really help to design what we put out for everybody. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to April to kind of tell you a little bit about the different trails to the same destination in terms of funding.
As you saw, that we are missing, we have a gap in funding of about $470,000, or just slightly over. In the past, the DDA has made a recommendation that their recommendation to fund this project was to extend some tip areas and use that as leverage for the funding. And over the course of the last few months, we've had numerous conversations, work sessions and such with the DDA, and council has expressed interest in understanding and knowing other options as well to pay for this project. I mean, I think as we know, there's multiple ways to fund many projects, but especially when it comes to streets, it opens the door for that as well. And so in your packet, I have provided 4 different options, and normally, as you know, the staff always tries to provide a recommendation to council. We never like to leave blank resolutions, but in this instance, because we have so many options, this is truly policy driven, and we can go over each of these funding options as we move forward. And I think I'll just kind of go over them very briefly right now, and then once we finish this presentation, we'll open that up for greater conversation and more questions. So again, as I discussed, the DDA had originally made a recommendation to fund that through tax increment financing. And then I also reviewed our budget as well and looked at another option where we could take the remaining funding from the Major Street Fund. And then, or there's another option as well of looking at taking some out of the Major Street Fund, the fund balance from there, as well as some of our general fund balance. And there was a 4th option that I did throw in there, which is, of course, City Council has the option to not fund the project. And as we had kind of talked about before, the grant we received is fairly significant. And talking to staff, the staff is in agreement that and recommends that this project move forward as well. And even though I did offer that as an option, I would actually not recommend not funding it, if you will. So those are going to be some options that when we complete this this presentation, that we can talk about in greater detail and offer time for council to ask some questions on these various options. So with that, I'll have Christina finish the last few slides and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to that, part of that conversation is that we had spoken with MDOT regarding the funding, and the funding that we did receive, the T grant, it's a 70-30 match. Now, granted, they don't cover engineering, so that increases our percentage. And when I asked them about what is the likelihood of funding in the future for future streetscapes, and what if this one weren't possible at this point in time, they basically did say that you can be assured that the percentages are going to continue to go down over the next course of the couple of years, and there could potentially even be not funding as well. As we know, the federal government is kind of juggling things too. So knowing that we have one in the hopper, I think that it is an important one to note that if we can afford to do it, it's an important thing. So in terms of the return on investment, really what I want to say and reinforce is that this is really about economic development. When you do a streetscape improvement project, it really does strengthen the overall economy for an area, and it will improve that hub for the commercial district as well as the neighbors. And really public confidence really helps to kickstart private reinvestment. So it will follow what we do. So we lay big footprints, but sometimes they do come in after us and lay even bigger ones. So it's a great thing to be able to spark. So with that, I have one final thing that I want to show you, and I have to go over to my computer and do it, but it's really kind of fun and cool.
Oh yeah, I saw you doing this earlier, right?
So,
all right.
A little 3D modeling.
I'm getting dizzy. Like driving with you, Mike.
I just saw Dan start Dairy Queen.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Christina. Very, very good. Very nice presentation.
So basically, you're traveling east now at this point. Yeah, you're traveling east. And you're about to come to close to the mid-block crossing right here. Okay. And you have on-street parking. I wanted to mention that as well. A lot of vegetation, and obviously then that would be Livernois.
Awesome. Good. Thank you very much. Yes, that's worth a clap. Thank you.
So, as you can see, this project is...
Are we done with that?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. As you can see, this project is fairly large in scale and size and impact. And as I provided multiple options of funding this project, and with that, I guess I'd like to just open that up to discussion. I can go over these in more detail, or we can just kind of open it up and go from there, whatever the pleasure of council is.
I have one pre-finance question left over, if I can. You mentioned that MDOT took from March to October for the approval of the road diet to go from 5 to 3 lanes. Do they have any specific objections that it took them so long to make that determination, or is that their normal turnaround time? Or
that's normal turnaround.
Reduce lanes.
We'd lose that grant if we don't move forward on this.
Yes, they're waiting at this point. We're queued up to receive the grant, and that's why we're actually before you tonight, is so that if we are going to move forward, we need a resolution of support, or we do risk that money going back into the pot.
Get this okay on the table.
All
All right.
right. Questions, comments of council? Yeah, Scott.
I just wanted to better understand the TIF option. The one option is we can write a check for it out of our current, balances in either major streets or major streets in general fund, or we can approve a TIF that requires no upfront funds. So where does the money come from immediately? And do we have to bond out based upon the TIF? Is the idea, and how long does that take to pull together?
Well, that will take me some time to actually do the bonding work, considering we haven't started on that component. But in terms of if that would be something that that council is interested in pursuing, we would need to move very quickly. For tax increment financing, it would be a multiple steps. You would have to adopt first the downtown development plan for that area, and then the tax increment financing plan for that area. And then that would allow us to then look into the bonding resources. I mean, we can look into bonding resources right now based on that, the projections, but then that would require then the DDA actually going into looking for bonding for that based on the plan.
And do we have time to make that happen?
Well, we, for those new areas, because they're new, we also have to go to the county. So there is also the 30-day public hearing process with that, and we still need to meet with the county for that. So as part of the resolution, it does want you to confer where the funding would come from, or that it would be committed from the city. Normally, with some of these grants, they might be receiving funding from potentially other nonprofit organizations, potentially foundations or something like that, depending on what the project is for specifically. But in this case, this would be from the city. The DDA is part of the city. We're quasi-governmental. We're part of your fund system or fund structure. So in either way, it would be coming from the city, just in a different route, to put it forth clearly in that. Do we have time? We have to work very fast. We wouldn't be able to, we would need to do the resolution regardless and try to move forward on that element to see if it's possible. We're not guaranteed from the county.
So if we want to do this project, if we are so inclined to do a TIF, we'd have to commit to spending the money that we've actually saved up if the TIF, for some reason, didn't go through, ultimately.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? Well, let me, I guess, ask a couple of you, April. If we funded this from Major Streets, so if I read this correctly, Major Streets has a balance of about $755,000. So conceivably, you could take the entire amount from there, but one of your options is to take half of it from, approximately half of it from there, leaving some monies there. Are there other, and the theory of that being that there's some other uses for that money?
Sure. I mean, I think, yeah, you can look at, it doesn't have to be 50-50, it could be any kind of split where you're helping out both fund balances. I mean, we have street projects that are always in the hopper. I mean, I know in the next 2 years we're going to be looking at East 9 Mile as well. So, you know, there are the options to, if you did the full amount out of Major Street Fund, it would take your fund balance from about 750 to just about 300. And then if you, of course, did a little bit from the general fund balance as well from the major streets, that keeps your major streets fund balance up a little bit, but depletes the general fund. So street projects are never not needed. So it's a fund that's not overly healthy, but it's not negative either. So.
May I ask, on the 50-50 split you've modeled out that brings the general fund balance to 27.94%, is that a rate you're comfortable with?
Yeah, I'd like to keep our fund balance around 25, especially with the state changes and things of that nature. Having a 20 to 25% fund balance is a comfortable position for the city to be in.
I'm looking at least one member of the audience that wants to address this. So what I'll do is, because I say the audience can address these issues as they come up on the agenda, so I'll ask if there's anyone from the audience that would like to address this item at this time. No stranger to City Council.
Hi.
How are you, Kate?
I'm Kate Baker from 1615 Beaufield Street. And did you hear my cheer when the Beaufield Street mid-block crossing was announced? I'm so excited, and my neighbors really will be as well. This is a big change and a huge improvement for our neighborhood. But in addition to neighborhood resident hat, I'm wearing my vice chair of the Planning Commission hat at the moment, as well as a little bit of my sat through 4 city council budgets have. So the two questions I think that are most relevant to that budget have to do with maintenance, and I think it is relevant to what you guys are discussing right now, and I wanted to make sure that it was looped in at some point. We've had an ongoing conversation, my neighbors and I, one neighbor in particular has really championed this for years to the point of going out and picking up trash and cleaning up graffiti on his own. So we do have some ongoing trash and graffiti maintenance problems in our corner of the world, and I wondered how in the long-term maintenance budget these would be addressed. Who's emptying the trash cans? How are things being cleaned out? And how would any graffiti or other things be taken care of? Hopefully, as the entire neighborhood improves, those sorts of things will decline. But we do have a few bus stops, and with landscaping, sometimes things get stuck in the landscaping. So I wasn't sure. I know how it's paid for in the downtown, but without that same revenue stream, I'm wondering how it will be paid for here. Also, go ahead.
Let April answer that.
Oh.
Can we do that now, or you
Sure.
want to
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, we did, as you noticed in the call to action, that one of the differences, again, as we had talked about before, when the original recommendation came forward of going and utilizing the DDA's TIF or the tax increment financing, that was part of their overall, not only to help fund the project, but to maintain that. So I did make it clear in the call to action that any maintenance that occurs in the future, if we fund it in a different capacity, would fall back onto the city. And I know that we haven't really taken a look at what can we kind of scale back on if to maybe not have so many maintenance costs, but there will be the average of the normal maintenance costs of emptying garbage cans and making sure things are picked up. So I would imagine we would work with Lloyd, but possibly continuing using Worry Free, but we would probably have to come up with that cost per year to extend their area. But I did make a recommendation in there that we would budget for that. So we can take a look at, maybe we wouldn't have a flower pot on every single light pole or things of that nature, but that would fall on the city's responsibility.
Yeah.
And I haven't acknowledged that, and we would budget for that appropriately.
Right. That was one of my
tree replacement and flower replacement fall in there too.
One of my question was the landscape plan built off of the TIF paying for the landscaping? So you're saying that we should reduce the scope of landscaping?
We would have to look at those extras just a little bit more closer, a little more closely than we would have normally, because we weren't prepared to do that. But what we would do, I would imagine, is take a look at what our options are landscaping wise and see where we possibly could scale back. But the first thing I think we would need to do is find out what it would take to maintain the plan as it is, and we can look at that and see what that price point is. We just have not done that yet. So we may not have to, just depending on how we do that and how we utilize DPW staff or Worry Free or whatnot.
The other long-term maintenance question, and this has come up before council before, as pertains to the south end of Woodward and Livernois, which are on-street parking spaces that are not metered and therefore are not consistently plowed. And I'm wondering, are these parking spaces going to be metered, and will they then be plowed by the city, or is this another situation where we're getting into maybe snow piling up, things getting icy?
Can you repeat the location again?
So things had come up to council before. Business owners, for example, on Hilton had complained that their on-street parking spaces don't get plowed. And the response that we got at the time from the DPW was that those are not metered parking spaces and therefore aren't creating any revenue to pay for the plowing.
For instance, in front of Edgemont Ford.
Or South Woodward, exactly.
I think because of that being 9 Mile itself, the entire 9 Mile is going to be plowed, I'm sure.
I was just wondering if these are going to be metered and then sort of looped into that system.
I don't know if we were intending on metering those, were we, right away? Pardon? Yeah, okay.
Multi-space meters.
Yes.
So they'll be looped into the plowing system somehow.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the plowing situation separately, whether it's metered or not, I'm sure can be readdressed with our current
I know, I haven't met our new
director.
DPW.
Yeah, well, he's right behind you.
I know.
Yeah, we'll take care of
Wonderful.
that. But yes, we are actually, that's a good point on that as well, is that one of the goals that we have as the parking fund as well is as we do street projects. Right now, as you know, we're working on a multi-space meter project. The priority right now with multi-space meters is the parking lots. However, we've committed to assuming, determining it, that as we do street projects, we want to move those streets as well into metered parking, and this West 9 Mile project would fall into that category as well.
Okay. That's fantastic. One last question and then
You're
one
really
one
over your
comment.
3 minutes, but
I
quickly.
know, I'm sorry. The last one is,
Otherwise, you have to run again and to come up here and you can talk all you like. No, I'm
are the
sorry.
light poles actually being moved out toward the street?
I'm going to have you, Christine, answer that question.
Moved out towards the street? I mean, will we have more sidewalk?
Oh, yeah, you're going to have more sidewalk.
Great.
7 feet, yeah.
Then the last is just at the last planning commission meeting, and I only mention this because I don't think our council representative was able to be there that evening. We had a wonderful conversation with the neighbors on Kenton about redoing the Taco Bell, and they came out. It was the best conversation that I had had in a long time. I really felt like we were able to accommodate neighbors and make some small changes to a site plan in order to make them happy. And I think that they would come out to talk again about any changes that we made at the end of Kenton. So just to let them know, I think they'll come back out.
Good. Thanks, Kate. I think we have someone else for public. This is.
I just wanted to also comment on the parking bays that will be there. There'll be porous pavement in there, so one, that is a sustainable component, and one of the funding reasons that they select the grant. But it does require some vacuuming each year. I don't know if it's twice a year. I think it's twice a year. So obviously those spaces will be maintained, like we already stated. Multi-space meters would be then incorporated within there too.
Great. Hi.
Good evening. Nicole Rafael, owner of State of the Art Framing at 918 West 9 Mile. I don't have any questions, but I did have a couple comments I wanted to share. We do have, obviously, investing in that end of 9 Mile helps my business, and yay, I'm very excited. But we do have customers that come in that share their thoughts with us, and you know, we have moms with strollers saying they're afraid to walk on the sidewalk on the south side of 9 Mile because it's so narrow, and you know, they tell us these things, and we go, yeah, we understand. But also we have almost zero curb on the north side of 9 Mile, and we do have neighboring businesses that have customers that will literally pull up on the sidewalk and park there and or drop people off. And I fear for our customers who open the door and walk out with a big picture in their hand who may not see a car coming that's whipping up onto the sidewalk. So safety is I think, a concern for my customers as well as pedestrians in general. My second comment would really just be, as a business owner who invested and put a business in the sort of orphaned end of 9 Mile, and I am considering investing in a second business in that area, I would hope that the city would see this as a project that would be valuable in bringing more investments and making that end of 9 Mile match the downtown. So, thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else from the public? Sherry Wells?
My understanding from some of the people about the Kenton thing is a lot of people were turning onto Kenton to avoid the Pine Crest signal light and ignoring whether it was one way or not. So this will take care of that particular problem as well. When I was picking up trash along West 9 Mile before the Art Town event, what I noticed at some places like the bus stops, people were putting the bottles down, not tossing, but just putting them down. If they'd had any trash cans and recycle bins, they would have put them in there. It looked to me like that would have been their intent if those things had been available. So that looked good to me. One other concern that I haven't heard expressed, and I'm glad that the safety parts were expressed, because that was something that there were, for that focus thing, that 40 people that came out, that was the biggest turnout of any of those 4 areas, because you have a very active block clubs there. And we need that all over the city. The concern is about the alley. When you're talking about crime, sanitation, and health, that there's the alley, and I haven't heard anything spoken about the alley that runs behind the businesses on the south side of West 9, and I'm sure some of those people will be watching this and wanting to know about that.
This does not address alleys.
It does not address alleys. The streetscape doesn't. Obviously, maintenance would.
Yes.
And one other note, sorry, I just wanted to mention on the tree wells and perennial in the beds, we have really gravitated to going to more perennials in all of our beds to really reduce the amount of watering we have to do. Granted, when you have a new tree that is planted and with a federal grant, there usually is 2 years of cultivation that is required with any grant project.
All right. Anyone else from the public? All right, council, it's your turn. Discussions, comments of council.
I think this is an important project. I think that the work needs to be done, and I think will ultimately help enhance property values in that area. It is difficult as all get out to walk down that area today, and there are severe safety issues there as well. And I think it'll be good for the businesses and the economic development. I personally would not favor a TIF financing mechanism and would err more towards the side of the 50-50 split between the general fund and the major street fund would be my preference.
I concur with Dan. I believe as a project that badly needs to be done, but I like option C with the 50-50 split. That's where I'm leaning.
Well, I mean, I agree with the need for it. I just wonder the opposition for the TIF. We are coming to the useful life of much of our built-out infrastructure. Many of our roads are going to need to be redone shortly, and we're talking about significantly depleting our major streets fund or some other fund. We wouldn't have to put out any money for the TIF, and it would cover maintenance costs. I'm just interested in opposition to the TIF, what the basis is for that. It seems to me also that this is when you get your maximum impact. The areas most depressed now, the capture will be the greatest as it starts to revitalize. So I would support option A.
I think, well, we're going to jump into the funding mechanism in a moment, but I wanted to say that I think this is the right thing to do. 10 years of planning, really good community outreach to make sure we're designing it well, that meets the needs of the business owners and the residents. And then it hits on all the things that Ferndale loves, green infrastructure with our green pavers, walkability, pedestrian safety. When I did the complete streets policy, those were the sidewalks that showed incomplete streets. So this is definitely in the direction where we want to go as a community. So in terms of the funding mechanism, I'm leaning more towards the 50-50, 75 split versus a TIF. And I think the conversation with TIFs has been ongoing for quite a few months now between council members, the mayor, and the DDA board. And I think, I'm not going to put words in everybody else's mouth, but I think my takeaway in summary of it is that a TIF is not the right funding mechanism now, particularly the way it was packaged. It was all 4 TIFs or nothing. And I think that's possibly in the next couple of years that would be something that we could consider. But it's not off the table, but it is for future use, but for right now, for this project. So I think that's kind of my summary of it.
And Christina, just for clarification, because when we talk about expanding the TIF area, you couldn't just TIF this area. It would require the 4 areas that you had presented.
Well, if you only TIF that area, you're only going to get a very small return within that area. It's only that area that you're getting a return from, and that's only that area that you can spend those dollars within. Considering that, when we were looking at all the 4 districts, it was to try to maximize all the projects that are needed over a course of 20 to 30 years within all those areas. Now, I do have to say that to say that we could come back to this in a couple of years isn't necessarily true. Tax increment financing is approved at the county level when it is proven that there is declining value or you are at a static level.
What do you mean come back to it in a couple of years? I don't know who said that.
I did. Well, Melanie just mentioned that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that. Okay.
So to think that you'll be able to get tax increment financing in a couple of years when values start to climb might be even more difficult to get done at the county level. And that is really what you're hoping from with tax increment financing, is that then you're capturing those additional county dollars that you usually do not reap the benefit of.
So, my 2 cents on the TIF is, TIFs are a great mechanism. They've been a great tool for the development of our downtown. They're a great tool to develop blighted areas, especially when you don't have the capital to put up front. There's a downside to them, which is that the city loses the incremental value over time that we use to pay for police and fire and other essential services. So in our case, we do have apparently the money up front to do this. Without sacrificing that incremental revenue in the future. I do think this is a great economic development tool and will revitalize this area, and I think that's going to add to our revenues, which we can decide to use to do additional improvements there or not, depending on the state of the city and the state of our budget. So if we've got the financing to do it, then I don't think it's a necessary tool at this time.
Right, and like option C indicates, it doesn't necessarily mean a 50-50 where we have to deplete the major street fund balance. Between the finance director and the city manager, they can come back to us with a recommendation of 75-25, 60-40, 70-30, whatever best works.
We got to say it tonight, though, I think.
Pardon me?
We have to say it tonight how we're going to.
We do.
Right. But I would just second to what the mayor said. I mean, my personal belief with the TIF isn't the right financing mechanism. Is it comes down to we either believe this is the right thing to do and it's going to work or it's not. And to limit the TIF limits, the money in the future. It takes it away from the city. I think this will certainly help. And there was even news recently that we are in the area of these property values increasing. This is only going to help that. I don't believe in giving that up for the city. But I do think this is a project that's going to be great and help the business owners in the area, like we've all said. So.
Well, I guess on that, I'm a little confused. I think even if we do a TIF, that part is still a section of the city. Police services are still needed in that part of the city. Street sweeping is still needed in that part of the city. It would be nice if we had a consistent programming, if we had a consistent look, if we had a consistent maintenance level throughout the West 9. So I think it would look really odd if we had, hanging plants that looked beautiful and planters that were well maintained up to Livernois, and then from there on we had less well maintained flower beds, trash containers that were opened less frequently and cleaned out, and programming that didn't include what otherwise looks like a consistent streetscape. So I think the arguments that are offered for the opposing the TIF are the same ones that are always offered, that somehow this is stealing money from the general fund, when I see it as really just the opposite. It sort of shores up our general fund by not having to take the money out of it right now and pays for ongoing maintenance at the level that I think has made the downtown successful. So I just, I think opposition to the TIF is just really, I just don't understand it. It seems sort of a more knee-jerk reaction than what I see actually playing out in our downtown. I think it's been a benefit to the city to have the DDA and the TIF in place there, but.
Well, I would just say that it's been anything but a knee-jerk reaction, because we've had ongoing discussions for over a year now about how to finance this and how we would do it. So it's, if we haven't been articulate enough for you, I apologize, but it's been anything but knee-jerk.
I also think that the city is coming up with how to maintain the landscaping portion so that there will be consistency. So the question is who's going to do it, and how we pay for that is the difference.
There's nothing to say that can't be done in a coordinated fashion, so there's consistency in the lift down West 9 from Pinecrest to Woodward.
I understand what the DDA is doing. Back in 2007 and 2008, former city council members approved expanding the DDA boundaries and sort of didn't fund those areas. And so the DDA is definitely trying to find revenue to help pay for improvements that spur economic development and whatnot. So But after the year working together with the DDA and the joint city council meetings and endless hours talking to individuals about both sides of the issue, this is where I've fallen on this particular policy.
Yeah, and I think I would also just add that a vote, not voting for the TIF is not a vote against the DDA. I think we all can agree the DDA has done great things for our downtown area, and certainly poured a lot of work into this project as well. And I think, we wouldn't be here where we are today without the work the DDA has already put into this.
No question. Any other comments, questions, reactions? A motion could also be in order.
I had some questions about risk. April, can you talk a little bit about if we reduce the major street funds down to $295,000, I mean, what type of risk are we putting ourselves in, and for how long?
It would concern me to deplete it that much. I mean, again, we use the fund balance not only to fund projects that are planned for, but to fund issues that might come about that need to be taken care of with other streets that maybe we didn't plan on. Maybe
surprise water main breaks.
Yeah, something like that, or maybe a road isn't being as maintained as well as it needs to be. We need to resurface it sooner than later. Those kinds of things. So I did offer that as an option, and we could still do it. Leaving $300,000 on fund balance is not horrible, and over the course of the next couple of years, we just have to manage that and make sure we put money back in as we do our budget for the next couple of years. So, I mean, the risk is anytime you deplete a fund balance, you always have a risk, but, at the same time, we can plan for that over the course of the next couple of years and put more money back into it as we go through our budget, making sure that I think it kind of lends itself into the conversations that we're going to have to start having over the course of this next year is we always talk about fund balance and general fund, but we also have to talk about fund balance and some of our other funds as well, our water and sewer fund and our major and local streets and things of that nature, so we can start looking at policy of where we want that to go. But what we can do, though, I can tell you this, if you choose to take it out of Major Street completely, is over the next couple of budget years, we would want to add some money back in as we move forward to try to, keep that fund balance at a level we're comfortable with.
Scott.
When does the road and sewer bond roll off?
I believe in 2016, if I'm not mistaken.
And those repairs were done mostly in the 1990s?
Correct.
Lloyd, if you know, when are we going to have to start significantly going through our roads again? I understand it's about a 10 to 20 year cycle.
I haven't reviewed all 80 miles of road, but I can tell you that, they are rated through what's called.
You want to just maybe speak at the mic so folks at home can hear you?
Roads are rated through what's called a PACER system that's required by the state in order to provide an asset management program is really what it is. And so, different roads will need resurfacing depending upon appropriate drainage, amount of traffic. Utility cuts certainly do make a difference. Certainly the water fund on an ongoing basis makes the repairs that are needed immediately, but as a number of utility cuts are made over time, the overall surface of the road will deteriorate. And so it is a concern. And as City Manager has already said, you have that balance in the major road fund, but it doesn't prevent council, depending upon how they choose to fund it, from annually on a budget basis to take money from the general fund or from money that may be considered surplus in your annual budget and putting it back into the major road fund. So if you choose to fund the program, certainly any combination, as the City Manager has said, of the general fund and of road fund, in the end, you can still address it on an ongoing basis.
Which leads to my second question. When does the Headley override expire?
2015.
And I know the answer to this question, but we don't have any funding mechanism to make up that gap other than another Headley override, correct?
Right now, correct.
So if the voters don't approve another Headley override, the possibility of doing what Lloyd suggested is really not a possibility, that supplementing the major roads with money from general fund without significant decreases.
Sure, and at the same time, too, as we're talking about the heavy, one of the things I have actually Scott working on right now is what we're looking at for the next 10 to 15 years for more road projects to go out for another set of road bonds. I think at this point we're looking at to continue keeping maintenance at a level that we've been experiencing over the last 20 years. We're looking at another $20 million. So there's a lot to talk about over the course of the next couple of years and how we handle the road bonds as well as the heavy. But yeah, I mean, with the amount of road projects that you would need to do to keep this maintenance, the chances of having to do another bond are high. I don't think our general fund, even in good days, could handle the amount of money that we would need.
And bonding out for that infrastructure isn't something that the five of us can do at this table. That requires a vote of the citizens, right? So we could run into a situation where our roads reach the end of their functional life, where the Headley rolls off and voters don't approve either a Headley override or a infrastructure bond, and we're left with roads that are out of date and these funds that are $450,000 less, when we had an option to essentially fund it without dipping into our savings account, which is why I'm opposed to items B or C.
Well, then let's go with D.
Or A.
Okay. Well, to that point, as April just said, at some point when the infrastructure bond expires, we're going to need somewhere in the vicinity of $20 million. So $200,000 today is not going to be it's not an insignificant amount of money, but it's not going to solve or not solve the road infrastructure needs in 2016. So I think that they're only, barely related in that sense, that it's not a significant amount of money to address the need that's going to be there in 2016. Which is why I am in favor of C, which would be to take some from our major road streets funds and some from the general fund.
Yeah, I hear and understand Councilman Galloway's concerns. I don't think this project at the end of the day solves those issues coming down the road. And if anything, it may put us in a better position, at least in part of the city, that will hopefully see additional development from this road work and streetscaping.
I know from the outcomes of our joint city council and DDA meetings, one of our goals is to reconvene and talk about the hot, simmering, cool projects, about 30 of them that the DDA put together, and the costs combined for all of them are, outside of our financial wherewithal right now. But I think what the goal is try to prioritize them and include them in this long-range plan, which I think we're being very smart about, of looking ahead to deal with the bond renewal, to do with the Headley renewal, and come up with how our, even though housing prices or property values is inching, well, not inching, baby steps up. I think we need to make sure that we are tending to, have a really tight, short range in my opinion is 3 to 5 years about what we're going to do. And I think this TIF plan, or going through the option C, which is what I'm leaning toward, is part of making sure that we stay on track and start off with the 3 to 5 year plan on a good foot. We also have to plan for, hopefully we'll have mass transit down Woodward in within 3 to 5 years. And so, there could be other projects on Woodward, which, we could consider TIFs, even though the land value or the TIF capture might be less than what it could be today.
Is a motion appropriate then?
Motion is always appropriate.
All right, I would move that to move forward with the West 9 Mile project with the funding to be allocated 50% from the Major Street Fund and 50% from the general fund balance, and to accept the 30% match requirement for the Transportation Enhancement Grant for the project number ENH2012000014.
Support.
Moved by Martin, supported by Lennon. Additional comments on this item? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Council members Lennon?
Yes.
Galloway?
No with explanation.
Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted.
Oh, and my explanation is I enthusiastically support the project. I am adamantly opposed to the funding financing approach. That's my explanation.
Thank you very much. That is the last regular agenda item. The next item is call to council. Chief Collins, anything else for the good of the city this evening?
I just wanted to announce to the public that the Ferndale Police Department has come into the 20th century, and we did launch our Twitter site. Anybody that would like to follow us at Ferndale Police, the @ Ferndale Police, we are now broadcasting different things. Sergeant Baron Brown and Joe Gaucho have been instrumental in the launch of this, and kind of excited about it, but we're still getting our feet wet, but it is live, and we are putting out information on Twitter.
Wow, very cool. Congratulations.
Can't wait. I do want to advise council that late yesterday, Friday, there was an incident in which a home was broken into, and the homeowner had actually fired a weapon at an intruder. That individual has been apprehended by us and is in custody and will be arraigned tomorrow.
Congratulations. That's great to hear. Thank you. Chief Sullivan, anything from the fire department this evening? All right. Derek, anything from Community and Economic Development?
Just real quick, I believe council's gotten some information from us about a potential multimodal RFP that's been forwarded by the city manager's office. We are starting to look forward to beginning the project based on council's impact and request for improvements to the city's non-motorized system. So to that end, we've done a draft RFP, and what we're asking for at this time is the establishment of a task force, advisory committee, whatever the best terminology is for it is fine with us. But we'd like a member of council to participate, potentially 1 or 2 members of the planning commission, then some staff. Their initial task will be to review the RFP and make a recommendation if that's the appropriate direction for the city at this time. If so, that recommendation would come from the advisory committee, and then we'd move forward from there. Ultimately, the committee would be tasked with reviewing the proposals, reviewing any costs associated with them, and making recommendation to council regarding what direction to go in. We think it's a big enough proposal that it should be vetted by something or someone other than just staff. So we can obviously answer any questions, or we would look forward to having someone from council participate if possible.
Thank you. Thanks, Derek. Lloyd, anything else from DPW?
Nothing tonight.
All right. Jane Marie, anything? Thank you very much. Cheryl Lynn, anything from the clerk's office?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
All right. City manager.
Yes, I have 2 things. One is a friendly reminder that with the holidays coming up, there's going to probably be some adjustments in our meeting times here for City Council. So we'll start with November. November will be on Monday, the 12th is Veterans Day, and City Hall will be closed. So our meeting will be on Tuesday, the following day, same time, 7:30. And then the week after Thanksgiving will be our normal time, which will be Monday, November 26th. That will be a normal meeting again at 7:30, and then probably at the meeting in November, we will discuss and come up with a different time for December, as one of our meetings falls on Christmas Eve. So for residents who are paying attention to when our meetings are, please know that November and December may adjust. But the first one will be changed from Monday, November 12th, to Tuesday, November 13th.
And just piggybacking on what Derek said, we are seeking a member from City Council to be on the multimodal non-motorized plan. Was just curious if...
Did you want us to, I'm sorry, we're used to just listening to you, Derek, but did you want us to actually act on that this evening? Because I think we may have someone who's interested.
I've already raised my hand via email, so I am interested.
All right.
If
So
the council is so inclined.
If council's amenable, Councilwoman Piana could fill that role. Seems like a very appropriate spot for you. Sorry, I should have done that when you were up here, Derek. But
I'm following up.
Great, thank you.
All right. That's all I have today.
All right. Dan Christ.
I would just like to encourage everybody to vote on, in 15 days, November 6th, and make sure you make it all the way down to the nonpartisan portion of the ballot.
You'd also be running for judge?
I'm going to say.
Thank you. Dan Martin.
I'm going to say a little more because my friend Dennis Hoffner isn't here today, and usually in the last council meeting before election, he says, and he does it much more eloquently than I will, but please get out and vote. It is such an honor and an obligation, and there's so many people right now in the world who do not have that opportunity. And I get how frustrating campaigns can get when they get to unproductive tones in their discourse, and it's easy to check out. Just don't. It's so important. Stay focused, and please participate and vote. That's it.
Okay, well said. Councilman Lennon.
I have nothing. We've been here a long time, 5, something like that?
Something like that.
Something like that.
We earned our money tonight, right?
Yeah.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem
I
Piana.
have nothing tonight either.
Nothing this
I
evening.
know.
All right. Councilman Galloway.
Just one item. I've been getting a ridiculous amount of mail on Prop 2 and Prop 6, funded by corporate interests, I suspect, spreading what I believe to be a lot of misinformation out there. So I would encourage folks to dig into those two and all the ballot initiatives, but it seems to me that not all policemen, teachers, and firefighters are child molesters or going out there to prey on our kids. So perhaps there's a little lack of accuracy in those mailings I've been getting. That's it.
Thank you. I would just do a reminder that, as April said, the City Hall is closed on Monday, November 12th for Veterans Day. Veterans Day is technically on November the 11th. And at 11 o'clock on Sunday, November 11th, over at the Memorial Mall over on Livernois, we're going to do a brief but poignant ceremony to honor veterans on Veterans Day. So if you want to make it out on Sunday, November 11th, 11 a.m. over on the Livernois Memorial Mall, we'd love to see you there. And with that, we are adjourned. Yes.